runs the SOAR program, which is under the INSEE Idea umbrella. It is for female entrepreneurs, typically at a bit of a later stage. They're usually already in the fundraising phase, either a second seed round and or their Series A. So I will ask Natasha to come up and say a little bit more about that, and then Max will have you come up and get started. Thanks.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Krissa. So I am from NC Idea, and as Krissa mentioned, I run the SOAR program. We specifically work with female entrepreneurs who are either actively raising capital or are preparing to go out and raise capital. So they are farther along, but depending on who's in the room, there may be some great people that could be part of SOAR in the room, I don't know. But most of our companies have already raised a couple $100,000 in seed funding. A lot of that is friends and family, and they're kind of going outside now to raise. So we connect them to capital, we pair them with mentors and advisors, and we also try and create a community for them of other females doing similar things, because oftentimes that's not a large group. Max took part in another program at NC Idea called Groundwork Labs. This is another really fantastic program. By the way, all these programs are free. We don't take any equity. We don't ask anything of the entrepreneurs other than their full participation. And Groundwork is for people who have very strong ideas. Maybe they've been prototyping something, or they have an initial minimum viable product that they're beta testing, and they really want to get into pushing their business forward. I think Max can speak better about it than I can, but it's also a really fantastic program. It's for men and women, and it is 3 months in length. And whereas SOAR is a 6-month program. So NC Idea in Durham, check us out if either of those programs could be of interest. And I'll just quickly also chime in, we have a grant program. It's called the Sea Grant Program. It's a $50,000 grant for startups that we give away about 6 of those twice a year, so 12 a year. There will be another grant cycle coming up very soon. So if you get in our newsletter, ncidea.org, you can get info about all that stuff.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good. So let's go start with Serenade. Can you guys all sing along? You don't want me singing. So first of all, lights off. Okay. So I assume you can also see me, which is intimidating. I told somebody I'm an introvert. I really am. But very happy to be here. This is an area I'm very passionate about. I'm also very passionate about this community. So the alignment is fantastic. There's a live streaming. Hello, everybody online, if you're online. So I'm here to talk to you about Protopia. And at the end of it, you're going to hear a little bit of how I got started with this. But the purpose of Protopia is really that I have found it is extremely hard to ask for help, right? And you're part of many, many communities, as Krissa highlighted, the 1 million cups. Simply because you're part of the community doesn't mean it's as easy as it should be to ask someone in that network for help. And I know Uber is overused, but they continue to be a great parallel outside of their harassment issues that they have. So I should have said Lyft. But the simplicity really applies here, right? There are ways that you ask for help, but it really needs to be stupidly easy. And there's a bunch of networks here. So, raise your hand if you're a member of one of these networks or multiple. Okay. Keep your hand up if you think it's really, really easy to ask for help. You can plug in and somebody's going to help you. Okay, there's somebody. Oh, there's somebody's hands down right now. So there's lots of networks, whether these are intentional networks where you join, you pay a membership fee. There's indirect networks, so an alumni association. You're part of many, many networks, and what we've really learned is that there's lots of people that would help you because you've got affinity in that network. So I went to Carolina, and there's 170,000 alums at Carolina. I can tell you the thought of actually going out there and finding somebody to help me is somewhat difficult for me, right? So I actually went to Keenan Flagler. There's 36,000 alums at Keenan Flagler. I've never gone to that online directory and looked for help. I've gone to people that I went to school with, right? Because closer affinity, but unless I have an email address, I don't even know where to get started. And from my experience, most of you are in the same role, right? It is great to be a part of a member of the community. Getting help is really, really tough. Now, why is it tough? And you can't see. So there's an arrow that points to the right. I apologize for that. But when you ask someone what is tough about asking for help, but number one is if I go to Carolina, I don't actually know who to ask. Right? There's 170,000 or 36,000 at Keaton Flagger. Finding that needle in a haystack is really, really tough. Right? And then the second question is, how do I actually ask? And unless you're in sales, it is not easy to ask for help. Right? You're going to do some small talk. You can introduce yourself and say, listen, I could really use your assistant. Can you share some advice? Can you connect me to somebody? And then how do you ask? Is it, listen, can we grab coffee? Can we grab lunch? Do you have a few minutes? Those are some significant hurdles. And that's really how asking for advice works today. And what we do is we flip that around. We basically saying it needs to be as simple as a bat signal. You shoot a flare into the sky saying, I need help. I'm a member of this community. Is there someone that can help me with X, Y, Z? And that is it. We do the rest of the work. Because in my heart, and our data suggests that most everyone would help if a member of the 1 Million Cups community would send you a request saying, hey, you got a few minutes? I'm looking for advice with X, Y, Z, and you've got joint affinity and you believe in a common cause. You would basically say, sure, I've got help. Or maybe I'm going to the beach, not today, but I'll help next time. So that's really dynamic where we got started. And we, by the way, launched last year in August and went to the Groundworks program. So this really started as a passion project because there's people that need help and people that want to help. And we are trying to sit in the middle and make that really, really easy because it helps both parties. So a little bit of a grouping overview. It's very easy to ask for help. We then match you with the best individuals in that network. And it's a plural. It's many of them. We then ask those individuals saying, do you have a few minutes to help? Are you available for coffee meeting? Are you available for lunch meeting? It's guilt-free no, which is important, right? You can say, not today, don't have time, not relevant to me. And then, by the way, if somebody says, I can't do it, we go to the next person in the queue, as long as there's high degree of affinity and I know you want to help. And then we send you the advice, or we send you the coffee meeting, we send you the lunch meeting. And really, sometimes I describe it as a Trojan horse. It's essentially an advertisement of somebody that's very relevant to you. And if you like what you see, I know you're going to be compelled to grab coffee at lunch, right? So this is an interesting one. And I'll tell you a funny story. By the way, I tend to ramble, so cut me off. Every time I talk about how Protopia works, the second question I get is, wow, I can't wait to see the sexy UI. Show me the app. Show me the login. I want to see it. What does it look like? And so there's always a gasp when I say, I don't really have anything to show you, right? Because what I know to drive high engagement is people are not looking for a new app, right? If you're familiar with mobile apps, it's really tough to get an install. You're going to have to know where to go, what to install, and then you may delete it. Same thing with logins. Our goal is to remove the friction in the engagement. So we're focusing on the tools you already use. You use email, and people have said that email will die for many, many years. We use SMS, we use Slack, because you use those tools. And I don't want you thinking about where will the request come from, how do I engage? It needs to be that easy. It's always a letdown. So if you're let down, you can raise your hand and let me know. It's going to be a good motivator for me. But it really is that easy, right? We will use channels that you already use. And I'll tell you some stories behind it, but it's intentionally simple. There's a backend. So we've got an administrative login where administrator can go and they can follow the conversations, right? 1 million cups. Carissa may say, well, I wonder what kind of questions are arising in my network. I wonder who's engaging. I wonder what kind of issues or how long it takes to get help. All that data is there, but the questions and the advice and the helping is very, very easy. So who do we sell to? There's really 3 markets we're going after, and we're starting with high affinity, where already membership in that network is in your interest, and you're already compelled to participate. So you heard from Natasha, SOAR, high affinity, right? These are individuals that are developing fantastic businesses, women-owned businesses, which you can never support enough. And there's mentors that want to help those individuals. So they will do nearly anything they can do to drive those businesses forward. And membership means high affinity already. So it's a perfect example where you would say, listen, I'm building XYZ. Can you help me with that? we will carefully match that request to the right audience and saying, you've got a few minutes. If you're spending the rest of your day in meetings and all you want to do is provide a quick reply, you can do this. If you're available for coffee or lunch, you can do that as well. We will make sure we will give you the chance to help as little or as much as you can. But it's a little beacon. So we're going after universities. Again, in our data that we've tested is when you ask someone that went to the same institution, you're likely to open that email and you're likely to help because that natural affinity, right? And there's a lot of institutions out there, 4,453 public lists out there. So when the question from a marketing perspective is, we reach out to them, I've talked to a lot of universities and basically said, do you have the problem? And they all do. And then basically saying, let us help with that, right? We're trying a different approach, low tech intentionally. The second market is, and we're actually seeing more traction in here, is in the startup space. So Natasha and Krista mentioned NC Idea. They have actually become our first pilot customer. We launched with them in April, and the value proposition is the same. There's a cohort of 17 Groundwork Labs companies right now in Durham. They've got a 3-month program, and they don't know every single advisor on the NC Idea network. By the way, there's 300 of them. So a use case, a story that just happened a few weeks ago, there is a startup company in Chapel Hill. They were looking for introduction at a large CPG company locally, and they didn't know how to get there. So we took the request, we matched them to an individual that we thought would have a connection in there. And sure enough, they now have a meeting set up with the GM. I think that actually took place last week, who was happy to help. And that connection occurred via an advisor. So that matching algorithm, figuring out who can help and how they can help, is really at the core of what we do. And that entrepreneur didn't have to know who to ask. We facilitated that meeting, that connection. Does it make sense? Who would not open my email? I want to see you challenge me. Okay. So traditionally, our open rate has been over 80%, and our engagement rate has been over 60%. So if I send you an email and I carefully craft the story of why you should help, 80% of you, about 87%, would open the email. Right? The subject line would say, here's the community, 1 million cups. Do you have a few minutes to help a marketing company? And if you're in a marketing space, you would say, oh yeah, I'm going to help because I want to know that the next time I have a question, somebody will be there to help me, right? And then 66% approximately reply to the email. And they basically saying, here's what I would do, or here's my Calendly link. I'm happy to sit down with you and help you. Thank you ultimately for asking for my permission to help. Make sense? From a go-to-market strategy, there's 3 spaces we're going after. And I didn't put the third market up here. I don't have enough data, but it's professional associations. So we've talked to bar associations, the same problem. North Carolina Bar Association has about 11,000 members, I believe. And if you look at a use case from a bar association, I'm a solo practitioner sitting in Boone. I'm hiring my first paralegal. Now, I don't want to talk to the bar association saying, what should I think about? What I want to do is talk to somebody who actually has gone through the problem. Somebody that has walked in my shoes and saying, can you tell me what I need to think about when I hire my first paralegal? From a paperwork, from an hours perspective, what issues have you run into? And I know in that NC Bar Association network, there's people that have gone through this, and they can't wait to help. Funny fact, today they charge $150 for you to ask a question, get help from somebody in that network. Why do they do that? Because it takes them work, right? And I can tell you, and I'm married to an attorney, they're very frustrated about this. So great use case for us where members want to help other members, and we make sure that question and that request is relevant. So how are we making money? My favorite question. What I'm showing you is it's an evolving business model. The traditional business model is an annual license fee that ranges from $7,500 all the way to $50,000. And they charge the annual fee, they deploy it because it takes some time, in particular in academic settings. So we're looking at pricing a little bit as a competitive advantage. Untested, and I'll tell you in a second why, but number one is I want to be on the hook for your success of the network, right? I want to test that message. If you don't see the transaction, the adoption by your members, I have no reason to be in business, or there's no problem that I can solve for you. The other part is also, I want to do a monthly subscription. as a SaaS business, that really is what you ought to be doing. And I want to give you a way out to cancel this because, again, I'm a huge believer in value. For us, it's very much about finding product market fit. So we're using the pricing a little bit to force that, saying you can cancel anytime you want to. All I ask for is tell me why, and tell me why the data that we have shown together is not compelling. Make sense? So I'm also telling you in another way, this is subject to change. As the more we learn, the more data we get, I may say, well, of course, everybody's charging annual. I'm an idiot. We should be charging annual, right? A transaction is really a request and a question. So it's both metered. And again, it's very much evolving. So who we're selling against, and there's lots of logos out there. The two, if you're taking notes, anybody taking notes, raise your hands. Okay, you're taking notes. The two that are of particular interest are People Grove and Sensei. So People Grove actually was recently purchased by a local network. And most of these are ultimately what are called rich directories. So there's a lot of innovation going on where you go to a URL, you go to a site, mobile app, and you're presented with a rich directory, and then it becomes fancy in how you search for that. You go in there and saying, I'm searching for somebody in marketing, in Durham, maybe in this zip code, or there's, somebody can record the search, and that's how typically they go to market. And People Grove is one of them, Brazen, there's some vertical solutions. We're flipping that on its head. We have got a membership directory simply for administrative purposes, but we're basically saying we want to take the pain of trying to find that person away from you because we know there's motivated individuals in the network that want to help you. And again, it's what we're testing, the initial response, and again, our open rate from a marketing campaign perspective is very high. I can tell you when we reach out to higher education, the open rate is above 90% because they're struggling with engagement. They're struggling in activating 170,000 alums at Carolina, 230,000 at NC State. They're typically not engaged. And what happens when an alum is not engaged? Anybody have a guess? They don't give money, right? It's that basic. So we're basically saying we're going to activate it, but not to go into much detail. The other one is interesting is Sensei. Sensei has a B2C offering where you have a mobile client and they use SMS and they match a question to the right individual anywhere out there. So you can go there and you basically say, what's traveling like to Paris, France? And they will find someone that is actually right now in Paris. They will ask them and saying, can you provide some advice? It's B2C. The experience is all from my experience because you don't actually know who that individual is responding, if there's any affinity, and anybody can respond. But I encourage you to try this. The reason I bring up the Sensei is actually one of the areas where we're particularly passionate about this. I love AI. I love machine learning. I'm very excited. I love my Alexa. I've got 3 at home, and they're fantastic. But one of the things that you may identify with is that in the area of more technology adoption, there is a risk to the human relationships and what we sometimes call the human intelligence, right? So our business is just simply to establish a connection. We're not another Google search engine, right? We're not an artificial intelligence or knowledge base. That's not what we do. All we do is tap into your willingness and ability to help, and then we get out of the way. And if a relationship occurs and you connect with somebody that cares about what you do and wants to help, fantastic, right? I'll jump in the air. I'm not a good jumper, by the way. I won't do it today. So the way, actually, I would like to get your feedback on this. We sometimes call this automated micro-mentoring. And I hate the word mentoring because it means so many different things in everybody's mind, right? Mentoring may mean we meet every month or every day, or you call me every day, or mentoring may mean we meet once a year. But we're trying to find a term to position and anchor what we do so the conversations are easier. So I'll have a little quiz at the end. But intentionally, if there's one thing to take away, we're not taking a directory approach. We're not taking a lookup approach. We're doing that intentionally different by finding the right individuals that want to help you. So where are we right now? This is actually freshly updated. We went through the Groundwork Accelerator, which, by the way, is a fantastic program. If you know someone who launches or is thinking about a business, they have 2 offerings, actually. They've got a daytime Groundwork Labs program where you have to commit full-time to the program, and you get to meet fantastic people, and they will challenge you. And then they have an after-hours groundwork program. If you've got an idea, but you don't want to quit your day job, go ahead and check them out. That team is passionate. They will not take any equity. So their heart's in it in driving employment and jobs in this state, which, there's almost no purer cause. But we write Q1. We launched, by the way, we started the Groundworks in November of last year with the B2C model. But we firmed it up in Q1 with the help of Groundworks and saying, okay, this seems to make a lot of sense. There's networks out there. They're struggling with engagement. Why don't we see if we can make a difference here? Because it still passes the litmus test of establishing human relationships. We got our first customer, NC Idea. They had the problem of being a bottleneck for connecting individuals. So we've been live with them for now 8 weeks. And now we're getting additional pilot customers. So to Chris's point, I'd love to explore the 1 million cups community, because most of you are here for a particular reason and you care about the community. We got additional commitments. So Natasha's community is closed and it's very passionate about what they do. So a great use case for us, because everybody in Natasha's network would help. I guarantee it. But it's a matter of making a question relevant, right? If I'm a marketing and I get a finance question, actually I would feel bad because I want to help, but finance is not really my expertise. So I don't really want to get another question because I don't want to feel that bad again. So a little bit that mechanism of getting the marketing question to the right individual, getting the question that's interested in Red Hat to the right individual. That's ultimately what we want to do. We want to make both individuals feel good. We've signed, and I think I can say this, I signed some paperwork. So if I'm violating some rule, then disregard it. We signed Idea Fund Partners, which is a venture capital company. We signed HQ as of yesterday, verbal commitment. And we signed Digital Health in a Triangle, which is actually, if you're in healthcare and digital, you should check them out. Great community, passion, mission driven. And we signed also what's called the Startup Study Group. So this is actually the largest Slack community for entrepreneurs in the world, 8,000 members. And so I've got a couple of people that are working with me. They freaked out when I told them it was 8,000 members. But that's the way you learn and scale. So we're looking for more pilots. And my request at the end is going to be, I want you to think about networks that you're part of and where you think there's an opportunity to grow the engagement and make it easier to help. But we're really proving out the concept, building out the technology, and there is technology. The goal really is to develop machine learning algorithms to make the matching easier while keeping our finger on the pulse, and then scale in 2018 beyond. That may mean funding, etc. I don't know yet. I just want to show that it works, and I feel good. Everybody in our team will feel good. That's why we're doing it, and we want to do it more often. A little bit of background. So I've been in this area now for nearly 25 years. I've been drawn to venture-backed companies, most recently head of product at NetSertive. Before that, I was product SiteQuest, B2B commerce. Before that, ChannelVisor. So I know software. I know how to build software. And, funny story, it was really hard for me to sit on my hands and not start building something, because that's what I do, and show something. So we're all doing it manually at the beginning because I want to see the mechanics work. And then you can build it, right? So do things that don't scale. It was very hard for me to adjust. But I know how to build products. I know how to build technology. I'm not a sales guy. I'm learning. And a little bit about me. And there's, I think, 4 of us right now. So they're all busy working right now. So hopefully this was useful. And I've got 2 questions for you. And I think I'm doing okay on time. Number 1 is taking a bottoms-up approach, asking you, what networks are you part of, and would you like for that to work better? And I would love to hear any examples you have where you say, I'm a member of XYZ. I actually spoke with, where's Terry? Terry. So Terry and I spoke yesterday about, for example, the Rotary Club, right? You've got a lot of motivated individuals. So I want to hear from you examples of networks that are not working as effectively as they should. And then the second part is, are we doing an okay job explaining what we do, and if we do it better? Because I'm always struggling with this. We have lots of conversations, phones, emails, CRMs, you name it, but you're never really done having a message perfectly crisp. So I'd love to get your feedback. And I don't want to hear feedback, this is great. I want to hear the feedback, this could be better, right? All right, now it's your chance. Throw something at me, challenge me. Good, bad, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Okay. I just had two questions to clarify. The pricing model. So you would be 1 million cups would be paying that $99 subscription, right? Not the individuals in it.
That's correct.
Okay.
The network pays it. It's B2B.
Okay. And then the other one was, would you connect people that aren't in the same network? For instance, the thing you did there. So that person might have graduated from Arizona State, or from somewhere else, and moving to Chapel Hill. Which are you able to connect those two networks? Or is that you have to be in the network?
So I would speculate that the University of Arizona probably don't want you connecting the University of North Carolina.
Okay.
Right? There's a lot of collaboration going on, but number one is if you think about donating money, it needs to go to the University of Arizona. So now, would they be able to say, is the University of Arizona alum that lives in Chapel Hill, that lives in the Triangle, that has experience of finance? That's what would happen.
Okay.
I don't want to bore you with my naive vision of saying have one huge network, right, and sing the John Lennon Imagine song. But, right, you are part of multiple networks, and everybody's interested in helping with the right request. So there's some things I'd love to bounce off of you.
Yeah, good. And then we'll go.
Regarding the second question there about so one was regarding the price.
The price. It's B2B.
It's not clear. Yeah, it wasn't clear. Another thing is it's not clear how the user will set up or look for the advisor. So I think it's not clear. I mean, maybe you can.
Yeah, so I'll tell you with NCIDEA. NCIDEA has a distinct email address that every entrepreneur knows. And so we do a job of marketing that address. They send a question to us. We do some basic authentication. Are you part of that network? Are you authorized to ask? And then we determine the context of the question and match you on the database via tagging with the right individuals. And then we typically send it to 5 to 10 advisors that we match on industry, experience, interests, geographic proximity, and a couple of other factors. The other one we're matching, and that somebody may be asking is, how do you make sure the same person will not get hammered with questions all the time? Our default is, if you have helped once a week, you're done for this week. You can tweak that a little bit. You can say, I want to help as often as possible. But being respectful of the advisor is a huge element of this.
Is everything done with software right now, or something is manual?
Oh, there's a lot of stuff manual.
Okay.
I don't believe me. You don't want me started on the manual.
Okay.
Questions?
Hi. I love this. What's the process for advisors or question answers or anybody to set up their profile? Download LinkedIn? Is it more specific? And then how many search terms does it work on, or does it work on like a whole profile?
So let me start at the top. The way we typically would launch is we would work with a network saying, tell us everything you know about the member. Right? It would not be a lot. The vision is to go to the network and pull some data down. But as you may know, Network's API is closed, so they're very careful with the IP. And the way we're thinking about it is we would ask you, was this a good request or not? What would you like to be matched on? And then picking up with some natural language detection. Oh, she would like to see marketing and finance and Burt's Bees or Red Hat Entertainment. Make sense? So there's a registration process. For NCIDEA, it was seamless. We worked with NCIDEA. We got all the data. We announced it together with them. And then you got the question saying, here's someone in marketing that's looking for help with a flyer. Could you assist because you have experience in enterprise software? And then you would either say, yes, I'm happy to help. No, I'm not happy to help. Or maybe you wouldn't reply at all. So we would know that.
Is there a limit to how much you can load in the database? Can you get really definitive, like say?
I wish I could answer this. I would love to say, oh, it's 100,000. We're based in AWS. And there's somebody smarter than me that would say we need more servers, more processing power. I don't know that yet. I'd love to know.
Hey, Max.
Hello.
Two things. One is I would love for you to explain to people where you got started and how you ended up here, because I think that's a great story for startups.
Okay.
The other thing is that to these people who become experts and the people who are asking the questions, at some point, if they want to, do they go off into a connection together and make beautiful money together and pay you something, or just become,
So I'd like to think that most people would help not for monetary purposes, right? I can just tell you how it feels. And if there's a relationship that springs up and it ends up with economic benefits, happy to do that. All we basically do is introductions and make it easy for somebody to help. On the origin story, you probably don't have enough time, so I'm happy to bore you to death how I actually started working on this and how my smarter half forced me to do something on my own that I feel passionate about. You probably don't have enough time, but I'm happy to do that depending on what we have.
Hi, my name is Carol. I have a question.
Hey, Carol.
What's the difference between your competition in LinkedIn?
Yes.
I want to know.
So let's talk about LinkedIn.
Yes.
Everybody loves LinkedIn, right? No. That's exactly. So I tweeted this, and it's amazing. So I had a premium subscription until recently, and I went to LinkedIn and I looked for my first degree contacts, and now they actually cut you off after seeing the first 3. So I tweeted out a couple of days ago saying, when did you change that? Now, LinkedIn was acquired by Microsoft. If I were Microsoft, I would do the same thing. They're monetizing the heck out of it because they paid a premium. And I'm not speculating what LinkedIn will do, but I've gotten the question saying, well, isn't that what LinkedIn does? So let me walk you through an experience, and if that resonates, raise your hand. But number one is you have to find the right individual, right? And not everybody is on LinkedIn, and not everybody on LinkedIn actually has raised their hand that they want to help. So you get an in-mail, and you have to pay for that, right? $40, $50, $60, which, by the way, I've been told by universities that students really don't want to pay. They don't have money. So you send a question out, and you're saying, hey, Susan, you've got a couple of minutes. I saw that you worked here. I would love to talk to you. Susan is thinking, somebody else selling something. This is a spam machine. Stop contacting me, right? I see people nodding here. Now, problem number one is, the other problem is, let's assume Susan actually has the best of intention. She wants to help, but she's on her way to the beach, right? She doesn't want to help, but she's just been asked, so now she's starting to feel bad. Ugh, I wish I could help. I don't have time right now. I've got 20 other email requests. And Frank, who asked, is wondering, well, maybe that wasn't a good question. Maybe I'm not relevant. Maybe she doesn't want to help, right? It creates a bad dynamic when you do name-to-name request, in my experience of what I've heard, right? So we're intentionally different that it's only individuals in your network that want to help, and we will find the right individuals to help you. Right? So I'd love to have somebody saying, well, LinkedIn does it better, but that's simply what we say. They have a challenge on their hands, LinkedIn. Where? Okay.
Yeah, so you already addressed part of my question when you were talking about.
Did I do a good job?
Yeah. So one, you're talking about a person being one request a week, no more than one request a week. So that's good. But just kind of on that, you did talk about kind of a guilt-free transaction.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of mechanism to try to make that, or is it just we're saying, oh, this is supposed to be guilt-free?
So it is guilt-free. So and again, I'd love to get your feedback, but in this example, Frank has a request and he's sending it out. Frank actually doesn't know that we send it to Susan. We're basically saying we're going to find the most relevant members of the network based on tagging, based on their experience, based on what they've given last advice, and we're going to ask Susan. And Susan can basically say, I'm on the beach, this is a good request, but I can't help. And ideally, she would let us know, but she's not losing face, right? Because Frank doesn't know that Susan's not available. We all have good reasons that helping today is not a good piece. And I can't tell you how often I get replies saying, man, this is great. I wish I could help. Not a good fit or not a good time. Please hit me again next time. Because not everybody wants to help. So the guilt-free is that you're not on the hook to help because I know that you were just asked. And I know that you're not going to feel good if they want to help, but you can't. Does it make sense, guilt-free? Okay.
Right over here.
Right over there, sorry.
Hi, Max. You just mentioned that you're going to charge the community, right?
Yes.
For in that case, there is the assumption that there is a real entity. I mean, of course, lots of community is informal or there are dynamics in and out things.
Yeah.
And also another assumption is the community, the entity, if there is, they should know very well about the members, that they can give you the directory about their expertise of their members.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, I don't think all the communities know that information because 1 million cup that we are here, I know that I sign up, but
Yes.
they do not exactly know very exactly about each members, right? So this might.
Yeah, no, and to your point is there's formal networks and informal networks, right? 1 million cups probably straddles the line. If Chris were to say, and the team were to say, oh man, we need this, we've got this problem, right? We have people that want to help, but it's tough to match. Chris would say, I'm speculating, listen guys, sign up here, go register. I don't know enough about you, but if you want to be a part of this, you've got to tell us who you are and you sign up. And there's a registration page. Most formal networks have a lot of information about you, right? And they typically would have to opt out of participating. Because if I would ask you saying, can you please sign up, the engagement rate would be probably pretty low because you get asked all the time. So we typically say everybody's a part of it because we believe you're part of this network to get help. And then let's see how this goes. Then we're monitoring opt-outs and engagement. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And believe me, there's so many informal networks that I'd love to get to, but we've got to have money. And the B Corp principle is money before mission.
Yeah.
So I'd love to get there. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I got a quick observation, and it's more about the connection and the contingency of the quality of feedback from the mentors that they give to the people. Is this even on?
Yeah, I can hear
you. I was like, I don't hear my own
yes.
voice. But how do you assess the skill set of the mentors, and how do you recruit them, and then in turn keep integrity high?
So I'll give you two answers. Going back to using the LinkedIn defense, LinkedIn doesn't have a mechanism what a good questioner is not or what a good answer is, right? So I'm leaning a little bit on this. What we do is a few weeks or days after feedback was given or the help was given, we ask them 3 questions. We send them a quick survey saying, was this advice actionable? Did you act on it? Because there's a nuance. And number 3 is, would you recommend us to get a net promoter score? And then we share that with the organization, right? Because they want to know. But I'm not going to sit here and say I'm guaranteeing good advice because we're all humans. If you want good advice, go to Google, right? But you're going to have a conversation. That's what we make sure will happen. And then we'll get on the back end some insights. Oh, this was good or not. And eventually, science fiction, there will be an algorithm to say, this individual is better known for this help, for this advice. Let's over-index on someone like that. We don't have that today.
Hey, I have a question. I have a suggestion.
Yes.
I think you should let people remain anonymous. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want. Sometimes it's embarrassing. If you
say again. Sorry, I'm not sure I'm getting this.
No, not my identity name. To remain. Do you have that? Because that's a suggestion for you.
That's a great concept. This goes a little back to the origin story. So. And by the way, somebody cut me off because believe me, I will not stop talking.
We will if we need to.
Okay, good. So to give you a little bit of feedback, last year in August, we launched a business, and it was me and somebody else, focused on resumes. Because I've always had a passion about careers. I've always wanted to help people with their jobs, and I did a bunch of quantitative research, bunch of qualitative, and I determined that resumes are a huge problem because 90% of people get feedback on their resumes from friends and family, which is probably not the right people you want to ask for feedback, right? You want to get feedback from somebody that's in that space. But it was, to some degree, anonymous. You would actually not know who gave you feedback on the resume. So to your question, we've played around with asking an anonymous question and giving anonymous advice, but it goes somewhat in the face of, I really want to kind of build a human connection, right? I haven't yet run into this where somebody says, I don't want anybody knowing that it is me. We've thought through this, but right now it is Joe is asking a question and Kathy is going to help him. That is it. Which is also probably a reason why we're seeing more traction in the startup community space. They're by definition wired to help somebody like them, right? That's the reason they're there, to help someone, to help a startup, to help get funding. But when we may get to the alumni space, and we've actually had some conversations with corporate entities, maybe anonymity is something that's really, really important. I'll let the data guide us. Does that answer your question? Somewhat. Okay, good.
Great, yeah. Many organizations require data in order to have funding for their services.
Yes.
So for advice, I'm just curious if some of the organizations that you've signed so far or looking into to sign on in the future have asked you about that in terms of data and reporting, in terms of how many inquiries are they getting, but also what type of inquiries in what sector are they coming in from and things like that, so that they can get their grants and so forth?
Yeah, I don't have a great answer on this. We're very early again. We're recruiting pilots right now. I can tell you for NCIDEA and some pilot customers, we share every single question, and they've got access to an admin portal. For us, it's really more listening to the pain, meaning I wish I could do this so I could do more work. There's lots of engagement metrics we can share, right? Who is asking the most questions? Who has the best advice? What's the best time to ask a question? So I spoke a couple of days ago to a CTO that you may know in this area, and he basically said, listen, if you ask me a question before 2 p.m. in the afternoon, I will not answer because my productivity is really, really high. I hope your machine detects that if you send me a question between 4 and 6 p.m., I'm likely to answer. I'd love to have that data. I don't have it yet. I will get it on a much larger data scale. And then to your point is, I'll be able to show them, right? Companies like you are going to be able to expect this. Here's the true ROI and benefit that you will get. So the conversation is easier. Right now, it's just going around and you go into potential customers and saying, I think you've got this problem. How do you solve it today? Can we be a better way of solving it? And most pilot customers are 90-day free because I want to make sure they can see the data and then they're going to pay. That was a long answer.
Hi.
Hi there.
And by the way, you have 3 minutes.
I knew you would say this.
I had to put it in there.
Yes.
So, question: how if the communities grow? I mean, it looks like if I read your slide correctly, it is based off of the interactions is how you pay. So there's smaller communities versus larger communities.
Yes.
I'm assuming they're paying the same price? Yes or no?
Yes.
And then as a community grows, I guess you would maybe expect to have more interactions, in which case that would increase the price. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then going back to what another question was asked earlier related to kind of the cross-pollination of the different networks, that yes, if somebody does go in and ask, hey, I'm looking for somebody at Northwestern that does blah, blah, blah. I know you're still kind of going through this, but is that something that you think will be in the horizon, or?
All right, good. Now you get to my emotional pitch. So let me tell you something. And I started with this because I feel great when I help somebody, and most of you are in the same situation. And so I've talked to a potential investor accidentally, and I think she said, so you want to do good and you're selling to Duke when I can argue that a Duke graduate is the last person on earth that actually needs help, right? They're part of a pretty powerful network. What about somebody at Central or Shaw, right? They may not be able to afford it. How are you going to help them, right? So the perfect vision would be that, all the universities in local areas get together and there's a nice competition, and I can say, hey, Carolina students, Carolina alums are better helpers than Duke alums, better helpers than state alums, right? I'd love to create that. Long way away from this, right? Because right now I've got to pay the bills, but I'd love to do that, right? And find all the connections, find every reason in the world for you to help. And I will use any means at my disposal to get you to help. That may mean how I get you to engage. That may mean how I talk to you. That may mean who's paying for it, right? Does it kind of answer your question a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but it doesn't pay if I go out and saying, I have this naive John Lennon vision saying, oh, would you please join me and sing Kumbaya? Because the reality is different, right? And I want to learn as much as possible.
Max, I'm going to ask a quick question
Okay.
myself. I think the issue with not having a UX is it makes it kind of intangible.
Yes.
Like a UX makes things tangible.
Yes.
I wonder if you could use some of that data, if you want to spark that, to create a helpfulness score for the networks. Just something very basic so that you can then have something to show. So this many people helpful. Just have something, a dashboard, some kind of thing that's tangible.
Well, so that's a good question. When you're talking about the buyer persona, right, the network. So Krista may say, well, I wonder how engaged the network is, right? Which 1 million cup community is better? What are they doing to drive engagement? I would love for her to see it. I don't want any of you logging into a system because you're going to lose the login, right? Happy to build that. But for me, it's all about going back to drum roll. It's this. It's an email or a text, and I want you to trust us that you will only get relevant requests. Are you going to care about the engagement score? Maybe not, but Krista would care. Right? The person that pays the bills, So there's some analytics we're building in. I'm happy to show you the UI. But true story, John Austin, and some of you may know John. He's the director who runs the Groundwork Labs program. I've pleaded and begged with John. John, have you logged in? I'm not seeing analytics or Pendo that you've done this. What do you think, right? And John's saying, I'm so damn busy. Just send me a weekly report. And that's what we're doing. He gets a weekly email with requests, advice given, trends, best requests of the week. In fact, every time somebody asks a question in NCIDEA, we post it to their Slack community so that he can see it. And he's still not responding. The email works because it's the channel that he's using.
I think putting that up on the web and showing the report that is something tangible if it is. But over here, last question.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just more of a comment, and it was related to the universities and trying to compete with each other.
Yeah.
And really what happens when you try, it's a pitfall that a lot of people fall into. When you try to compete businesses against each other, what you're not doing is celebrating what they're doing well.
Yes.
And it actually decreases the rate of behavior of what you're wanting to look for, and it creates mediocrity. So that I would just say watch out for that.
Yes. I have many, many stories on higher education, which is really where it came from. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to upset anybody. Any other questions?
That was actually your last one.
Oh, it was the last question. Okay,
Thank you, Max, very, very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes left. I do have one community announcement.